to Professor Kundu. Is that okay, Professor?
Perfect, perfect, sir.
Okay, so let me welcome you to this special session we are hosting on the Union Budget. As we know that we are marching towards Viksit Bharat, and this budget is going to be, of course, very important. In the last budget, the government had for the first time defined what they mean by the term Viksit Bharat. They had said they would like zero poverty, they would very good health standards, very high quality education, everybody would be skilled. There will be larger number of women in the workforce, female labor force participation, and farmers will become producers for the world market. Over this 1 year, many people have written on many things, including EGROW and including myself, where we said that we need quantifiable, monitorable targets towards Viksit Bharat. The Prime Minister himself at Niti Aayog in May also invited the states to join in this journey of Viksit Bharat. And then very recently, when the Prime Minister met some economists from across the country, there also he talked about Viksit Bharat and looking at ideas how to make the country become Viksit. And as you know, as part of the normal routine, the finance minister meets a number of economists from across the country, trade associations, important schools of economics. The FM meets, gets ideas, and these all are then incorporated in the union budget. So as per the tradition that we have followed at EGROW, we are continuing with that tradition of having a pre-budget discussion, trying to bring people from different walks of life, different parts of the country to come and contribute ideas into what should enter the budget as the country is moving towards Viksit Bharat. Today is the first one. We are going to have the second special session on budget next Saturday, where we are calling the fiscal policy for Viksit Bharat. And there also 4 professors will be contributing into that process. We will also like to, and we have yet not firmed up, we'll also like to have a special session on Manrega, which we believe will contribute into the budget making. And that special session on Manrega, which is the modern GRAMG, we'll be looking at it from different angles, critically evaluating. We are also requesting everybody to please mute yours. Requesting everybody, please mute your mic. Please mute your mics. Okay. And we are also planning to do one more special session on insurance sector and Viksit Bharat. So we are going to have this one as the first one. Next Saturday, a fiscal policy for Viksit Bharat as the second one. We are going to have Manrega or GRAMG as the third one. And the fourth one will be insurance sector, which we have yet to firm up. We have a very good panel today on the union budget from across the country. We have invited economists, and all economists who have been invited have been specially invited because we know that they can contribute in this discussion. We have from Northeast Professor Bezbaruah. We have Dr. Dadhich, who's an agriculture economist. From the Defense Forces, we have General Reen, who has just retired. From industry, modern industry, we have Mr. Dilip Chenoy. And from Ernst & Young, a think tank again, we have Mr. Ajit Pai. Professor Kuldip, who has been with us a number of times, she's joining us. Professor Indu Varshney, she's from the Indian Economic Association, and she's a professor also, and she'll be talking to us. We have Indraneel Bhowmik, another professor from Tripura. We have Rajeshwari from Christ University, Bangalore. Dr. Rajesh Singh is from ASSOCHAM. And then we have Ananth. He's a dear friend, very critical of various policies and significantly contributing to policy making. He is an independent researcher. To chair the session, we have Professor Amitabh Kundu, who was the president of the Indian Economic Association. They have just concluded their sessions, their annual meet, and I thought he'll be very good because he'll bring in fresh ideas, and therefore we invited him to chair the special session. With this, I know Professor Kundu was not keeping well, as we all saw it at the Indian Economic Association meeting, but then he agreed to chair the session, and I'm thankful to him for having agreed to do so. With that, let me hand over to Professor Kundu to take the proceedings further. Professor, because we have a large number of economists, public policymakers, and senior officials, we have extended the session to 6 p.m. That means we have 1 hour and 45 minutes. So over to you, Professor Kundu.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Charan Singh. It's honor and privilege for me to be part of this major webinar on a very important subject which touches all segments of the economy and also different parts of the society. This is a very special webinar, I must say, because this is not the first in the new year for EGROW Foundation. This is the second, I think. But nonetheless, I have never seen a webinar with 12 participants, including myself. So we have to be a little bit careful, disciplined. Let me begin by wishing Happy New Year to Professor Charan Singh, our fellow panelist, and also the members participating in this event online and offline. Given the stature of these participants and also the limited time that we have, if you multiply 12 by 10 minutes, though you have 120 minutes already gone and we'll have very little time. So I would think that all the panelists, including myself, shouldn't speak more than 10 minutes. And I think there will be some deviation. Considering that, let me restrict my initial remarks to 5 minutes only. And if the remaining time that we have will be grabbed by the panelists and the members depending on their, what they have to say. And certainly that would be very exciting. And I don't want to cut short the time there. But let me just say that New Year, begins with challenges because of the developments that have been building up over the past 6 months or so. The global tariff uncertainties affecting trade is one factor. We have now labor codes coming, and the proposed laws have come up which will operationalize the labor codes. That has created some excitement and debate. Another issue which is being talked about, which is again a fallout of the last 6 months elections, that the subsidies which are being given as a part of the various welfare programs which have been talked about. So there has to be some balance between fiscal prudence and the welfarist intervention. That is one area. And I think one issue which is bothering, which came up in the Indian Economic Association discussion, is this stagnation in terms of employment share and also the GDP share of the industries. Although the last quarter, that is Q2 of 2025-26, shows a high growth rate for the economy, 8.2%, and also for the industries. But if you take a larger 5-year perspective, that is after COVID, industries have shown some, recovery. But again, that's a issue which is bothering us. The people are talking about premature deindustrialization, which is trapping many of the countries in Africa, Latin America. And Danny Roderick, professor of business economics at Harvard, says that many of the Asian countries, including India, may fall in this. Abhijit Banerjee has done some work to say that, well, India might be able to get out of it. That is one area of concern. And And finally, I think one point that strikes me as important is because of the infrastructural investment which has been made in the rural areas for balanced and inclusive development, regional development, how that is creating small towns and how they are encouraging the large villages to be transformed into urban centers. These are some of the concerns which are in my mind, and I'm sure they'll be touched uh, in different ways by the different participants. I'm very impressed by the selection of the participants because they really cover all the sectors that we are really at the moment concerned with. So let me not take any more time. Since Professor Charan Singh talked about the Indian Economic Association's annual conference, I think the best person to give some idea what came up, what were the issues that the economists gathered there, about 300 of them thought about, would be our dynamic secretary, Professor Indu Varshney. May I request her? She's professor at RMSS State University. Uh, Maybe, Professor Varshney, you take 10 minutes just to, and it would be better if you can restrict to below that so that we can have a little more time. Is Professor Varshney, Indu Varshney joined?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
So, may I welcome you to make the first intervention.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to thank Professor Charan Singh to make me a part of this important discussion. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this chance to present my view on this pre-budget discussion. Thank you, Chair, Professor Amitabh Kundu, sir, to invite me here as first. I would like to present my view regarding MSMEs, what can be done to MSMEs in this budget session. It's a privilege to share a few perspectives on what the Union Budget 2026 can do to strengthen MSMEs, the backbone of India's economy and a critical driver of employment, exports and inclusive growth. I'll not take so much time. I'll sum up my views in less than 10 minutes, sir. So, in a period marked by global trade, uncertainties, technological disruptions, and supply chain realignments, MSMEs face disproportionate stress. The challenge before policymakers is to ensure that MSMEs are not merely protected, but are empowered to compete, innovate, and grow. Let me highlight 5 priority areas where the budget can make a decisive difference. First, access to affordable finance. This remains the most binding constraint. Budget 2026 should expand export credit and concessional financing, strengthen credit guarantee schemes, and introduce statutory collateral-free lending up to 1 crore for micro enterprises with interest rate capped at 6 to 7%. This will directly address credit shortages and enable investment. If MSMEs get loan with a low interest rate, they will automatically become developed or become a source of development to the Vikasit Bharat. Secondly, technological adoptions. To remain competitive, MSMEs must adopt automation, digital tools, and cyber security solutions. The budget should provide tax incentives or capital subsidies and launch a dedicated MSME technology upgradation with awareness and hand-holding support. This digital automation and cybersecurity solutions will automatically upgrade our MSMEs in this direction. Technology, if technology upgradation mission can become a tool, the MSME will automatically be developed. Third, ease of compliance. MSMEs face a disproportionate regulatory burden. A single unified digital compliance portal, decriminalization of minor procedural lapses, and risk-based inspections would significantly improve ease of doing business. Fourth, export promotion and risk mitigation. MSME exporters are highly vulnerable to sudden tariff hikes and global shocks. In past 6 months, we are facing this tariff hike and global disruption. An export risk equalization fund would help micro exporters manage such risks, while enhanced export facilitation can improve access to global markets. Fifth, logistics, infrastructure, and sustainability. High logistic costs erode competitiveness. Investment in modern logistics, digital infrastructure, AI-based route optimization, and inland waterways can reduce costs. Simultaneously, incentives for renewable energy and energy-efficient technologies will support sustainable MSME growth. To conclude, I would like to say Budget 2026 must treat MSMEs as strategic partners in India's growth journey, not merely as recipient of support. A policy framework built on affordable finance, technology, regulatory simplicity, export resilience, and infrastructure will unlock MSME potential and strengthen India's economic resilience. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. MSMEs, if the government gives some support to MSMEs, as MSME is the key aspect of industrialization, MSME plays a pivotal role in the development, in growth perspective, in employment generation, and 40% of workforce is indulge in this MSME project. So if government gives support to MSME, it will be benefited to our benefited in our growth journey or employment journey, and definitely our dream of Viksit Bharat can come true in this perspective. Thank you all panelists to listen me patiently, and thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Varshney. You have been very economical in terms of time in your presentation, but you have sharply focused on the importance of the MSMEs in the future growth of the country, particularly in the context of a balanced, inclusive development, which is the vision of Viksit Bharat. And I must tell you that the recent growth in the industrial employment that we see from the periodic labor force data, largely it is coming from the MSMEs and also household-based activities. I think that connect can perhaps help us in really streamlining the industrial sector. But let us hear what's happening in the the larger industries. We have Dr. Dilip Chenoy, Bharat Web3 Association, has done a lot of work on industries. May I hear the story about the industries, whether it is stagnation or it is getting out of stagnation, and what is the future perspective till 2047? Dr. Chenoy.
Thank you, Professor Kundu, for inviting me to speak, and thank you, EGROW and Professor Charan Singh, for the invitation to participate in this webinar. It's a privilege to be among such a distinguished group of speakers. So I had prepared mainly from an industry perspective, covering 5 different themes. One of them was MSME, and so Professor Indu has so nicely articulated everything from MSME that I'll only touch on 2 or 3 points that have been left out.
I'm sorry, may I request all the panelists to kindly put their microphone in the mute mode when they are just listening. Please, Dr. Chenoy, go ahead.
So 5 broad areas, and I know that Mr. Bezbaruah is here, but I'm looking at tax certainty and simplification, even though Mr. Ajit Pai is there, but boosting investment and manufacturing, addressing MSME issues, and of course, AI, Web3, and frontier technology, and a little bit on tourism, with the objective of trying to get to that magical figure of 25% of GDP from manufacturing, increasing employment of women in the workforce, and then looking at future technologies. So first, if I were to look at tax policy and administration reforms, I think here we need to look at dispute resolution and litigation reduction. A lot has been done over the past few years, but I think we need to now look at implementing statutory timelines for disposing income tax appeals, especially at the Commissioner of Income Tax in appeals, and prioritizing high-value cases and permitting virtual hearings. On the customs front, the finance minister recently announced the future roadmap for customs rationalization and reform. But I think for the past cases, we could look at a one-time settlement scheme for legacy custom-related disputes. The second very complicated area is tax deduction at source, and we think we should rationalize it around 1 rate or 2 rates or max 3 rates, and especially also including for the virtual digital asset sector, which I will cover a bit later. We should also look at exempting business-to-business payments from TDS and TCS if they're already reported under the goods and services tax to free up working capital and reduce compliance burden. On corporate and manufacturing tax, the government had announced a 15% concessional rate. I think the deadline for that has passed. We should look at extension of this for new manufacturing units and potentially extend it to global capacity centers, and also extend it to fresh investments and capacity expansion by existing firms. You know, one of the challenges that people are talking about is how do you get private sector investment to kick in? Possibly this could help. Like I said, the customs announcement is very welcome. We should look at 100% paper-free customs environment, let's say in 1 or 2 years. The second area which I'd like to talk about is manufacturing infrastructure. We should continue with the infrastructure push, at least a 12% rise over last year, and also capex export to the states. We need now to renew and review the national infrastructure pipeline, perhaps get a new 2.0 for the next 5 to 6 years, and very importantly, create a permanent dispute resolution mechanism for public-private partnership and infrastructure projects to unlock stalled assets. In manufacturing, and here's where I have a lot of suggestions, I think what we need is a fund, maybe 50,000 crore sovereign guarantee window for states, urban local bodies, for green mobility, housing, industrial bonds. This could be off budget, low fiscal cost, and it has the potential to be a high capex multiplier. We need to unlock at least 5 to 7% of pension and insurance allocation to infrastructure and manufacturing bonds, enabling these sectors to raise capital. I think with credit enhancement and risk-weighted clarity, we have the potential to unlock about 10 to 15 lakh crores of long-term capital. Third, I think the early days of IDFC, ICICI, IFCI, they were, financing corporations. We need to look at a national manufacturing financing corporation to promote 15 to 20-year low-cost debt for semiconductors, green steel, hydrogen, textiles, huge labor-intensive industries, as well as Industry 4.0. We have to really relook at the weighted deduction. We have to focus on clean and strategic manufacturing. Incidentally, it's now 3 days since the EU CBAM has come into force, so we need to look at it. We need to focus on green steel, hydrogen, semiconductors, advanced materials, and AI-led manufacturing. The PLI schemes have been good, and we need to look at high manufacturing, semiconductors, power electronics, specialty steels, technical textiles, and really look at them and try and delink it from volumes. There is a huge debate on depreciation, accelerated depreciation, but I think for green and automatic capex, automated capex, that is, automation and robotics, covering energy efficient machinery, robotics, recycling, and digital manufacturing systems. Steel is a very important sector. So we need a green steel and industrial decarbonization mission with viability gap funding for hydrogen, scrap-based electric arc furnaces, and green public procurement norms. I'd like to quickly add 2 points to what Professor Indu Varshney talked about the MSME thing. I think we have to look at promoting cash flow-based lending, utilizing the public digital infrastructure and the aggregator thing. That's a way of institutionalizing collateral-free lending. The second area is how do we tackle the delayed payments? The Indian Bank Digital Infrastructure company has developed a blockchain-based tokenized bill system. They're doing a pilot, and this should be actually expanded and extended to the platform where large and small firms are there, so that this could be tackled very interestingly. I won't be doing justice to my own sector if I were not to talk about the Web3 sector. Here there are 6 specific recommendations. The first one, of course, I talked about reducing the TDS to 0.1%. Also, this is the only sector where set-off of losses are not allowed in capital gains. So you allow set-off of losses on VDAs. And to stem the flow of people relocating out of India, ease registration and banking rails to enterprise in these sectors. Interestingly, if you have a coin or a crypto in your name, you are refused registration by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. The fourth recommendation here is announce a regulatory framework or promote a self-regulatory mechanism for this sector. 2 specific things what the government should take an initiative is to launch a national regulatory sandbox for AI, Web3, and frontier tech. It's a single window sandbox under MITI, the Ministry of Information Technology, Electronics and Information Technology, and NITI, with time-bound approvals to address the manufacturing sector, finance sector, and exports. And do not exclude crypto from this. The last one here is task each ministry to develop a blockchain or an AI plus blockchain or an AI application project that has a potential to scale. For example, the tokenized bill system that I talked earlier, or detecting counterfeit medicine under the Jan Ashudhi Kendras. This will both improve productivity and create a multiplier effect in the economy. 2 points. Again, apologies, Mr. Bezbaruah, but I believe that tourism needs a lot of more attention in the country. And I think we need to launch a Heritage India campaign for the top 10 circuits. Allocate funds for quick upgrades for these global facing sites. Launch a segmented global campaign using digital influencers encourage the development of state tourism delivery units by means of a challenge fund, and develop a national tourism digital platform while granting e-visas at 6 to 7 months in advance. One final point before an end. Typically, a budget allocation is announced, and once the budget is approved, the process for creating the scheme commences. This, in many cases, may take up to a year. Just yesterday, for example, the details of the scheme announced in Budget 2025 were released. We're already in the next budget, and perhaps a change could be introduced that whenever there is a budget recommendation, it must be accompanied by a draft scheme document, which then could be finalized once the budget is approved. So we could compress the time frame from the time the scheme is announced to it is implemented. So these were the points that I had, and again, thank you very much for your patient listening.
जीरो करेंगे तो इजी जाएगा ना, और प्लस 6 हुआ कि नहीं हुआ 136?
Prof, you're on mute.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, we have to repeat again and again. Please keep your microphone in mute mode as long as you cannot ensure that other people are coming in or going out. Please ensure that your microphone is shut. Please, go ahead. Dr. Dilip, Dr. Chenoy, have you finished?
Yes, I finished. Thank you.
Well, in the confusion, but I must thank you for being very, very specific with your recommendations, covering not only the industrial sector, but also some of the other sectors. The challenge is to go from $2,500 per capita to something like 15,000. And for that, we need a growth rate of more than certainly 8% or 9%. And industrial growth has to be also at the same level. But the highest growth rate that we have had, in the post-COVID period so far in the quarter is the last one, which is 8.2%. So are we, with the recommendations that have come up, would they really add up to this vision, or that, we will be able to reach that per capita income level where industrial sector will contribute significantly? Otherwise, this setting the target of Viksit Bharat might be a political adventurism. That is something that we'll be discussing, but I'm very happy that you made very, very specific recommendations coming from the person in the field. Let us go to an academic who is also working on industry. Professor Bezbaruah is the Faculty of Economics at the Guwahati University. Please take your 8 to 10 minutes. Professor Bezbaruah?
Yes,
let's
thank you
take
very much.
2 more persons from the industries. We will have Dr. Pai next, and then we'll shift to the other sectors. Yes.
Okay. So actually, I'm not focused so much on industries anyway.
Okay, go ahead.
So, my previous speaker has been very, very specific. Mine will be more general, coming from academics. So obviously, the budget is going to be presented in a very, good economic background, with high growth rate being sustained and inflation rate being practically, very, very close to zero. And some people are, of course, a little concerned about the falling rupee rate, which I'm not particularly perturbed, because it happens all the time from 1991 onwards. It has been happening steadily. And now actually it can be, in fact, a blessing in disguise, in the form that, everywhere there is a rise of protectionism. So in that context, the falling rupee actually will give us, maintain our competitiveness in the trade circuit. I think that will not be a major problem. And as the budget turns out, I believe the government is going to continue its policy of sustaining high, capital expenditure, capex. All right. Now this has contributed well. As being a northeasterner, I'd like to point out here that the railways have now reached the capital of Mizoram, which is not a mean feat. So the infrastructure is really building up, but then there's a long way to go. So I think capital expenditure has to be continued. So this, I believe, will be done. But budget, of course, I have been following Indian budgets from 1991 onwards, and budgets are not only just numbers of revenues and expenditure. There are also policy things, initiatives. In this context, I'd like to raise 2 or 3 points, and I think that'll be within the time frame. The first point I'd like to make is that, I think we need to also look at the quality of public expenditure. And under EGROW Foundation only, when we discuss, Professor Murali Dharan's book, India's How to India. So that there actually there was extensive discussion on how public expenditure, the quality of public expenditure is a concern. I think productivity needs to really go up. So this is not a question of the total. Total, of course, the allocation. For instance, if we look at health and education, two critical services, which are extremely very, very important. When you talk about the demographic dividend, people generally shift to skill formation. But without the basic health and basic education, skill formation cannot actually be a great contributor. I think so. Here there are some initiative for questioning the quality, getting better returns out of the public expenditure. I hope will be initiated. This is something which is I think required. Second thing is that when we had this indigo crisis, we all became conscious about the fact that there are tendencies of growth of monopolies in the economy. Now, this is not a very healthy thing, because in the longer run, it reduces the competitiveness and efficiency of the economy. And not only that, actually, if you notice, if there are only two airlines, for instance, if one is down, then the country is really stranded. So the competition, I think government should initiate that there is that monopoly tendencies, whether in telecom or aviation or other sectors, need to be carved and all that. So for instance, even in banking, although there is not a monopoly as such, but SBI is so large, so if tomorrow something happens to the SBI, the entire Indian economy is going to be really stranded. So this is something we really need to think about. Now, other one is that, we are doing well growth-wise, but then one unescapable thing is that income inequalities in the country is, it's quite high actually, and I don't know if it is still increasing or not, but then it's quite high. So something needs to be done about this also. See, government is doing certain very important things like giving food grains free and all that. Practically free. This has really helped the people, and this should be continued. But at the same time, this is not a permanent fix of the problem. So there has to be attempts to, bring more and more part of the economy into the formal sector. So, for instance, this labor codes might help to bring in, to some extent, the informal, protecting wages of the informal workers also. But then more needs to be done here in this context. The central government and the state governments are sometimes actually sending monetary transfers, which some people wants to politicize. The politics is already there. But then I would like to say that this can be thought of as an initiation of some kind of, the universal basic income concept, which was actually initiated. A discussion on this was initiated in one of our economic surveys by in the time of Professor Subramanian, when he was a chief economic advisor. I think this is something, instead of letting it be ad hoc, pre-election, or that sort of thing, it should be we need to discuss whether we can bring this permanently to correct our income inequalities. And secondly, things are going to become more and more difficult. To getting everybody a good job is not going to be easy with all kinds of technologies coming up. So whatever we as a nation, how we share the whole thing, I think the universal basic income system can be a very good way of doing it. At least we need to discuss whether we do it or not. That's a different matter. But then this needs to be structured rather than leaving it for a competitive populism kind of a thing. So this is another thing I'd like to the community and the budget to sort of initiate. I believe I'll stop at this time so that I can save time for others. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bezbaruah. You have been, very sharply focused on some of the key issues. You talked about the importance of social infrastructure, vis-a-vis the economic infrastructure. You talked about the need for competition, at least at the higher level. But if you look at the growth of industries, small-scale industries, and also some of the household-based industries where the employment has grown, as the periodic labor force studies show, that I think there is need for certainly protection from the larger industries, but certainly that is an issue which can be debated. But most importantly, your idea from picking up from Subramaniam, the basic income, which is also a very, very important thing, which I'm sure will be figuring in the discussion. But I think the proposed rules for the labor suggest not just one income. They are talking about income levels for different professions, different activities. That also raises some issues. Well, we'll take them up in the discussion. May I have Dr. Pai? Dr. Pai, Ajit Pai, he is from Strategy Lead Partner. He is the Strategy Lead Partner at EY India. Please take your time.
Thank you, Dr. Kundu, and thank you, Dr. Charan Singh and EGROW, and a happy new year to all the panelists. Delighted to be here over you, with all of you discussing a very important topic, which is the Indian budget. Unfortunately, the budget of India still has huge impact on the economy because of the level of government participation in the economy. And one of the thoughts that I'd like to bring to the table is that gradually we have to figure out how we can get the private participation in the economy much greater. We'll highlight 2 or 3 key points on where this can happen to help the economy grow faster and actually, in the overall scheme of things, actually improve government revenue. The first, I'd like to talk about the entire reform, which included strategic disinvestment. That has slowed down. This government was very forward-looking, both in the last time in the late 90s, early 2000s. Again, they came with a lot of energy in doing strategic disinvestment. They made some progress over there on that front, but things have slowed down, subsequently, and it's not a topic they're visiting so much. So why is this so necessary? I think during COVID, you saw the public capital expenditure accelerate quite a bit. It's been pointed out by multiple speakers about the improvement in infrastructure. It's very evident, for example, with the railways in the Northeast. The railway budget, expenditure going up by 30-40% for 3 consecutive years. But gradually right now, you're watching a debt to GDP for India, general debt to GDP, that is still, above 80%. The FRBM, whether we, want to adhere to it or not is a different matter, says it should be about 60% of general government debt to GDP, which is the central government plus the state governments as a percent of GDP. Now, what that does is it increases the cost of capital of borrow, not just of the government and of the private sector. So some kind of fiscal consolidation on an accelerated basis would actually favor the Indian economy quite a bit. In terms of the kind of geostrategic environment right now, it would be a good thing. And right now, just given the decent growth numbers on the overall economy, for us to ensure that there is more sustainable, we need to be able to prioritize, what our spending is, and also figure out where our revenue is coming from. So in the last budget, I think it was very positive when you watched a streamlining of the GST, simplification, as Dilip Chenoy has pointed out, is a very critical part of improving our economy by simplifying it. But what was also surprising, subsequent to that, of the simplification of the indirect tax and actually not being revenue neutral, reducing the amount of indirect tax from an overall perspective, given that indirect tax as a proportion of the economy was still higher and we are targeting a roughly 50-50 split in the long run, was that they also increased the limit for paying taxes for the direct taxes. So we have taken that limit now up to about 12 lakhs, which interestingly has brought the number of taxpayers down to only about 2% of the economy. For such a large economy to be supported by 2%, and based on the average per capita GDP of India at around closer to between $2,500 and $3,000, but having the taxation begin at between around $13,000, at 1/5 what the per capita what the 5 times what the per capita GDP is, I think is putting a lot of pressure on a very narrow percentage of society. So we need to broaden that at this stage. So on the revenue side, I think the focus, I would encourage the government not to do much more on either the direct side or the changing anything in the indirect side until there is some kind of buoyancy and catch up over there. On the cost side, I think the freebies, I think we should be looking at reducing them. The reason why I'm saying that is not so much that I don't believe that a certain percentage of the population, is benefiting from that food, but what it's done is it's created frictions in the labor market. With 800 million people, managing to get now free food, and a large number of them benefiting from Manrega. Manrega by itself was an extremely useful tool to ensure that productivity in the agricultural areas could improve. By reducing the number of people dependent on farming, you actually could improve agricultural productivity that is still fairly low. So it was very useful. But once you add this on as well, then unskilled labor in the various markets, especially in construction, if you look at the Tata projects, you hear the Sharper Polanjis, you hear the Afcons, the Gammon Indias, the Hindustan Construction and Larsen & Toubro. There's a shortage of unskilled workers everywhere, and that's creating some kind of competition. So for the efficiency of this build out, it would be good to start looking a little bit more on the expense side and seeing what can we withdraw. On the reform side, also, we talked about the privatization and strategic disinvestment more than the central government, where I think it would be good to have this come in. It is critical at the state governments, particularly in the power sector. A number of speakers have talked about it being a problem for MSMEs, being a problem for industry, reliable power, all of that. And the rates in India are actually a massive cross subsidy. Also, the Uday bonds, what the government did twice, only kicked the can further down. It didn't actually create reform. So we need to revisit at the state level. Now, very clearly, the Uday bonds was driven by the central government to help the state. Power is, a state item generally, all the what you would call electric corporations that are over there. But if they give an incentive to the state governments for reform and privatization from the central government, then that would be far more lasting and transformative in helping our industry and all of that, and make the sort of cross subsidy that's happening between industry and agriculture and industry and the entry level homes. If they can make that a direct benefit transfer rather than use the electric corporation to make that cross subsidy, I think that would help industry a lot. It would also be more directed. Politically, it might be neutral because it would be a direct transfer from whichever state government to the individual that is the beneficiary if they want to help a certain segment of society. So I think power reform is extremely important. I think figuring out how we can continue Manrega but not have other frictions that are preventing mobility of the workforce. And we do want to see this strategic, disinvestment, start beginning to happen again. And the time at which both things like withdrawing a benefit, which is started in COVID for humanitarian reasons, as well as the strategic disinvestment, which sometimes is not the time at which it can happen is only this budget, because this is the second full budget of this government after the last elections. There's still 3 years left. You can't do these kind of reforms closer to election time when you're reaching the next elections. So if you want to have that impact in the economy and see this go through, the government will have to take some of these more difficult steps at this budget itself, because the impact of this will also be felt earlier. The economy will reflect this. You'll also start seeing, you won't be getting the repercussions, the other side of the reactions of people that don't want some of these things to happen. The electorate has a relatively short memory. So these are sort of very broadly, sort of the immediate, broad, high-level suggestions and more specific ways of looking at things, because we do need continued capex. The infrastructure deficit, as has been pointed out, there is a need for a new national infrastructure pipeline. But to finance that, we have to lean more towards PPPs. We have to lean more towards the states being freed from their constraints right now. The state debt to GDP is extremely high. And I think all of these moves that we are trying to do, which is ensure that we improve the non-tax revenue by privatizing over here, will bring down the central government debt to GDP, and there will be reducing that fiscal pressure will automatically bring down the cost of capital of the country. So I'll stop over there. I can always come in later, but these were in areas that had been touched upon by the speakers. But from an overall perspective, I thought that I could just add on a little bit to what they had said. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pai, for being very, very specific. Although you said there are general issues, but you have been very, very, specific in some of your suggestions, not only restricting to industries, but also the other macro level concerns. But the most important point that I take from your presentation is that the government, if they have to do something structurally different, go for structural reform. This is the right time, because I don't think that, as the years pass by and the period comes closer to the elections, that will be difficult. So that is something is very important. Second point that I take as a chairperson is that it is very difficult to really restrict the discussants, the panelists, to sectors, because we have not given a prior warning. And also, if you talk about industries, you have to bring in agriculture industry linkages, you have to talk about infrastructure. So I think that the panelists decide on what they want to speak on, but it will be better if they can connect their arguments with the ones that have already been presented, so that the participants can really understand the logical sequence. Let's have two academics from the university system before I call Lieutenant General Dr. Reen, R.S. Reen, but we'll have Professor Kuldip Kaur from the Guru Nanak Dev University, and then we'll have Indraneel, Professor Indraneel Bhowmik from the Tripura University, and then we'll have Dr. Reen. Can we request Professor Kaur to come in?
Thank you, Chair, Professor Kundu, respected Chairperson, Professor Kundu, my fellow panelists, and dear participants. A very good evening and very happy New Year to you all. At the onset, let me thank EGROW, especially Professor Charan Singh, for making me the part of such an elite forum. Since I belong to Punjab, and everyone knows that Punjab is basically predominated by agriculture state, is called as agricultural state. So all my submission is based upon my general observations. My wish list for Punjab from the central budget 2026 is to address some agricultural challenges. Again, to submit that now there are many challenges like excessive or different, say rainfall or excessive heat, excessive or cold wave, depleting water table, over usage of insecticides or pesticides, and so on and so on. But I will be putting forward the two main challenges that faced recently the Punjab economy, particularly Punjab's agriculture sector. And these challenges need the immediate redressal. And since we are going towards the Viksit Bharat budgeting and going towards the journey of Viksit Bharat, and agriculture being the mainstay of the Punjab economy, so thereby, in order to reach the target, I think that these are the two immediate challenges which are faced by the Punjab, have been faced by the Punjab economy or Punjab agriculture, and they need to be redressed. My first challenge, which I would like to highlight, is regarding the supply mismanagement, rather I would say supply mismanagement, because either in Punjab's, when there is a bumper crop, either there is oversupply or sometimes there is undersupply. Usually whenever there is bumper crop, particularly it happens in case of fruits and vegetables, farmers had to throw the crop or the produce on the roads, and sometimes they have to plow back the produce in the farms itself or in the fields itself, because the price which they carry, they are unable to recover even the cost of transportation to the market thereby. And hence, I think that in this case, there is need that we should look in for the supply management in the agriculture sector. And not only in case of fruits and vegetables, if I talk about today's scenario in Punjab, what is happening, since there is crop of cauliflower, say for example, cauliflower nowadays in markets, in wholesale is being sold at 2 rupees per kg, and in retail we can find it, take it at 5 rupees per kg. Same is the case of tomatoes, same is the case of potatoes when there is a bumper crop in that case. This is not only the case of say vegetables and fruits, but also this happens in case of other crops like you can say wheat and the paddy and the sugar cane, where the farmers have to sit and wait for days together to sell their produce in the market. So with also why this has happened, there are many factors behind it, because we all know that with the growing affluent consumer base, the structure of demand has changed. Nowadays, more demand is for organic produce, exotic fruits, we can say the juices, poultry, packaged foods, rather than the coarse cereals and pulses. So in the past, if we compare the growth rate of agriculture as well as the increase in demand, then we can say that in the past, overall the agricultural growth had been 4 to 5%. Now it has reduced, but the domestic demand had increased only at the rate of 2%. Hence, the funds are needed to convert the surplus produce into opportunity by the farmers. That is, with the growing affluent consumer base, farmers can gain by producing crops tailored to the consumer demand. So entire value chain need to be strengthened to reduce the post-harvest losses, which are roughly 20 to 30% of the total produce, valuing more than 80,000 crores or 2 to 3% of the GDP. By maintaining the cold storage chains and incentivizing the farmers to diversification with the help of processing as well as facilitating the marketing of this produce. On my observation again, in some provinces of Canada, what happens that supply management is basically done by forecasting the demand of the particular crop or particular produce, and then allocating the quotas to the farmers to produce a particular crop. So this way, neither the oversupply nor the undersupply can intervene to destabilize the agricultural produce prices. Hence, the funds are needed to create such types of national agencies, diversification, and storage infrastructure itself. But unfortunately, since Punjab is an opposition ruled state, so there is a steady erosion of resources in the past 10 years. So centralization of funds and delay in the release of funds like rural development funds and so on had affected the fiscal health of the state, which I think. Then the second challenge, even more crucial, which is based upon, of course, many factors, again, ecological imbalance or whatsoever can be the factors, is regarding the natural calamities which agriculture sector faced. Flood waters once again has tormented the land of 5 rivers in 2025. Since 1955, there had been at least 6 floods in Punjab, that is in 1955, 1978, 1988, 1993, 2019, and again in 2025. Loss due to the recent floods, as per estimates, is rupees 5,000 to 7,500 crores, primarily to paddy and basmati during that time. Thou hidden loss of machinery, then houses, livestock, etc., had been much more, along with the severe soil erosion, silting, fodder shortages, etc. Again, I will submit that funds are needed for taking structural measures, or what we can say as the engineering measures, like desilting all the 3 rivers like Beas, Ravi, and Satluj in advance, or small dams, or embankment strengthening, etc., along with the non-structural measures that I can say is like the floodplain zoning, AI-driven forecasting, community preparedness, creating awareness about the floods, wetlands, and ponds, etc., training the community for mock drills, etc. So focus resources are needed to shift focus from purely relief-centric spending towards long-term measures by leveraging technology and nature to create climate resilient infrastructure and systems, reducing Punjab's recurring flood vulnerability.
Professor
It is
Kaur,
to
you may
be
conclude, huh?
mentioned,
You may conclude
yeah,
now in
please,
another
within
minute.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Okay.
It is to be mentioned here that our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, announced 1,600 crores for flood reliefs. State demanded 20,000 crores, but Centre released 481 crores, and which our CM says that we have not received so far. So hence, going away from such types of things, I submit that resources are needed for Punjab to protect the agriculture vulnerability, which is mainstay of the Punjab economy. Thank you. I will stop here, Chair. Thank you so much for giving me the time.
Thank you, Professor Kaur, for highlighting some of the challenges that the agricultural sector is facing. I really didn't think that it would be possible for us to conduct the discussion sector-wise. That's why, but nonetheless, when I invited Professor Kaur from Punjab, I thought that perhaps the shift will take towards agriculture in any case. Would you permit me to make a slight deviation? I was going to invite Professor Indraneel Bhowmik, but I understand that Professor Dadhich has done a lot of work on agriculture. Would you like to come in here? Professor Dadhich has been Director of Research at RBI. And after that, we will come to Professor Indraneel and Dr. Reen. Yes, Professor Dadhich. You are mute. Please.
Thank you very much, Professor Kundu. I'm also thankful to the organizers of this conference, this webinar in general, and to Professor Charan Singh in particular for giving me this opportunity to express my views. At the outset, I would like to mention that, frankly speaking, union budget is not only the statement of the income and expenditure of the union government under the fiscal policy. It is much more. It's actually whole gamut of credit and monetary policy and other policies relating to the welfare of the people. In some quarter, it is felt that the inclusion of the credit and monetary policy tantamounts to the impingement of the RBI. I too to join this, to jump on this bandwagon. Now, coming to the topic, I would like to discuss about the rural sector. And as we know, rural sector is important not only in terms of the population, but also in terms of the contribution to the GDP. But in the budget, it's not getting its due share. So the budget to the allocation to the rural sector should be proportionate to its population share. Now, coming to the issues in the agriculture sector, I would like to first discuss about the flow of the credit. And last 2 decades, flow of the credit has increased. The growth rate is 23%, both in case of a short term or investment credit. But if you look absolute term, there is a not very phenomenal growth in case of the investment credit. And if it is not taking that much, then what we are doing is capital formation suffers, and therefore there should be the growth rate in case of a investment credit as well. If we look into the region, why it has taken place, it is mainly because of the interest subvention. The present interest subvention is 1.5 to the bank concern and 3 for the timely repayment. Now, and 7% the bank can charge from the borrower. but it is available only in the case of the short-term credit, that is the production credit, and not in case of the investment credit. And that's why the investment is more important. So my request is the budget should address to give this only also in case of the investment credit. Interest subvention should be given in that case also. Now, actually, we look into the another aspect, the flow of the credit to the priority sector. Actually, since the reforms, in the wake of the reforms, we have revised broadened the definition of the priority sectors. And as a result, the more and more in the term, as well as in the new areas like investment, RDF, this has been included in the private sector. So we are the needy persons are not getting the due credit. So I feel that the government in this budget should address that private sector should get back to the earlier definition of the private sector, and all this inclusion in the investment, RDIF or others should be done away. Now, if you look into the Kisan credit card, this has is phenomenal. It has done wonders in terms of the number of the accounts, in terms of the outstanding loans. But if you look into the operative Kisan credit cards, there is a little problem. Only 2/3 of the Kisan credit cards are operative, remaining are not operative. This indicates that there is a problem of the NPAs in case of a Kisan credit card, or there is also the case of the on-lending by some of the farmers who are able to get on the basis of the land some credit, and they on-lend it to the tenant farmer. So this issue should be also addressed in this budget. Now coming to the recent All India Debt and Investment Survey reveals the two very interesting things. One is that though there is an increase in the institutional share of the institutional credit, but it has not reached to its peak. That is one issue. The second issue is very, very important. The second issue is that the lowest strata of the asset bracket is not getting you can say, a very insignificant credit is given by the institutional credit agencies to the lowest strata of the assets bracket. Now, it means that who are these people who are not getting the credit? They are the tenant farmers, they are the agricultural laborers, they are the village poor, they are to get the credit. Now, why they are not able to get the credit? The main reason is that when they take the lease land, there is no, hello. If they take the lease in land, there is no written agreement, and as a result, they are not able to get the credit from the bank. My suggestion is that this budget should address that on the basis of the affidavit of the farmer, a farmer or agricultural laborer, he should be given the finance, he should be given the credit, at least say around 25,000 rupees or 50,000 rupees to undertake his operations. Now, these are the issues involved in the credit side. I'm coming to another one of the very important area of the rural sector, that is
Dr.
Anganwadi.
Dadhich, you have to be brief. You have to be brief now. Okay?
Okay, fine, sir.
Sir. Thank you.
Okay, then
Go ahead.
Anganwadi we will cover sometime.
No,
Okay,
go ahead. Go
thank
ahead.
you.
No, you have 2 minutes. 2 more minutes you have. Please.
Okay, fine. In Anganwadi, it has made its felt presence in the rural area. It's doing a wonderful job in the nutrition supply or vaccination and other things. But the major problem is the area of operation of a Anganwadi is 1,000 population. Now, in case of Rajasthan or other places, the population is spread in the hamlets and others. So a pregnant lady or a small child cannot travel a more distance. As all the schools are, all the Anganwadis are attached to the schools, so I feel every school should have a Anganwadi, so that the more and more people will be benefited under the Anganwadi scheme. The another is the area where this budget should address, that every school should have, every primary school should have a Anganwadi. The another issue is, which is more important, that there is no promotion avenues for these Anganwadi workers. In case of the all departments like railway, a coolie can become a point man. Why not a Anganwadi worker should remain the Anganwadi worker for whole of his life? So there should be some avenue for their promotion. Another very important aspect which we should be addressed is that the pregnant women and small boys should be given some special programs for the success stories. They should be told success stories of our heroes, so that they will have a everlasting impact on that. The last point which I want to cover is the senior citizen in the rural area or even in the urban area. There is around the senior citizen proportion has increased from 8% in 51 to now 11 or 12% in 2011. Now, actually, this class is not getting its due share, where senior citizens are around 10%, and the share in the budget is hardly 2%. I feel that there should be adequate attention to the senior citizens, and this can be their services or their talent should be utilized for the development of the rural area. And there are the senior people who have the more knowledge, and they can do the wonders. Now, finally, there should be a day centers where senior citizens can contribute a lot. So with this, I just close my presentation and request the government to consider these points. So thank you very much. So nice of you.
Thank you, Dr. Dadhich. You have touched upon some of the key concerns pertaining to agriculture and the rural development, but also you have touched on education and health issues, and also the problems of the senior citizens and not being addressed through proper programmatic interventions. May I now come to Dr. Indraneel Bhowmik, Professor at the Tripura University in the Department of Economics.
Sirs, am I audible?
Yes, yes, but you are not visible as yet.
Okay.
Mr. X as at the moment. Yeah. Good. Yes.
We can see him, sir. It's okay.
Yes, yes, we can see you.
Thank you, Kundu sir, for giving me the opportunity, and big thank to Charan Singh sir for having me here. I'll be very specific, and what I would like to say is my points would be related to NE. One, NE stands for, obviously, my region, Northeastern region. I'll be, whatever I have my ideas and hopes regarding for the budget on this, that is one area. The second NE is the NE, the national. We are in the 5th year now, and since I from an affiliating public university, I would really like to see some specific interventions in the budget relating to the evolving challenges for implementation of NEP, particularly for remote universities like us, with a large number of affiliating universities. Infrastructure is often some specific interventions and maybe some schemes for popularizing more and more digital infrastructure would do a big support for spreading of the holistic goals of NEP 2020. So that's my first take. The second issues are more specific related to my region. there has been substantial change in our infrastructure. Professor has already pointed out that railways reaching to Mizoram is definitely a big deal. But where do we move on from here? Can we think of specific capital expenditures in building more and more value addition opportunities in railways sector? Can the northeastern region have kind of coach manufacturing industries or some kind of locomotives? I don't know. So these would really alter the dynamics of the economy in the regional economy. More specifically with Northeast and taking you from the rural sector and agriculture, the Northeast remains to be agrarian. Even today, plantation is a big thing in the Northeastern region. So specific interventions on the plantation sector, which is facing a public crisis. That's my second take. The third point, which I would like, is that, again, that came up, everybody has witnessed the crisis that emerged in the first week of December following Indigo. We have heard that there are new airlines in the pipeline, and there are opportunities for growth of the aviation sector in a big way. What about having opportunities of building hospitality sector specifically to cater to the requirements of the aviation sector in the Northeast? We have large number of people, human capital, who are very adept in attending the hospitality sector. They contribute largely in the wellness sector. So why not we focus on building specific skills in this region itself? And I would like to add here the large number of airstrips that we have in the Northeast. Many of these are underutilized. The government of India provides a lot of subsidies for industrialization of the Northeast. And many of these are utilized for goods and some are all utilized. Can we think of specific incentives for growth of training centers in any of the airstrips in the Northeastern region? And we have two underutilized airstrips in my state, Tripura also. We see people from our country going abroad for being for training as a pilot. Why can't it be the other way around? My last point would be the Northeast is a powerhouse in terms of soft skills relating to sports and music. Can the budget make some special provisions for the Northeastern sector and the Northeastern states to develop these sports and music as an industry? Obviously, this will add to something which we have heard, tourism, and Northeast has immense potential. That's what I would like to submit here on. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Professor Kundu. Professor Kundu. In his absence, I think he must have just
May I
gone
request
wrong.
Mr. Former Director General, R.S. Reen to take his time.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and special thanks to Dr. Kundu and Dr. Charan Singh having invited me today for this session. Firstly, I must confess and say that it's a non-economist in the panel of economists. But what I will bring out is what I see from the environment. And my special thanks is to Mrs. Kuldip Kaur. She brought very valuable points. To some extent, yes, I could say that our state is a culprit to her problems, which I'll add at a later stage. But my first point is the sector in which I'm working I'm very much working with the industry, and this I've been doing for the last 25 years as part of my job. The one important point which I want that this should be carried to the policymakers is, if we really have to become a developed country by 2027, 247, or what we say that Viksit Bharat, then the spending in R&D has to go up, especially in the industry. Today we have done a lot in capacity building. Capacity building has come up in a very big way. You can always manufacture what is available in the world and set up an industry. The unfortunate part is the Indian design and Indian innovation is not going to the world. Now, government is giving a lot of incentive, but it is not the incentive which is coming from the industry. The big industry houses of this country, I do not know. And to my best of my knowledge, they are not even spending less than maybe 2% on R&D. So whether it is FICCI, whether it is CIA or other industry forms, including the economic forms, has to stress upon that the funding which the industry has to do in itself to create huge R&D centers for innovation in India is lacking in a very big way. Today, you can always lead by edge if you have that innovation in you. We are facing this problem even in defense manufacturing. Today, whatever you may call as a cutting edge technology, it's all being imported. We are still race behind in making an engine for our aircrafts. We do not have the engines which are designed in India for our air vehicles. We have limitation in our tech technologies as far as drones are concerned, though they maybe have been manufactured in very large numbers. So there has to be a growth which has to be brought in by the industry itself in the name of innovation funds, supported by the government in the name of a policy, and it will come down. Because the problem with the industry is it looks far too much from the government and then giving it back to the government. You have a profits which you are making, fine, you are spending some money on the CSR, that's good, but equally you have to spend money on the innovation part and on the development part. This is one point. Second important point is what we saw, or what my observation is, there are few cities in the country which are growing beyond proportion. I'll repeat the word beyond proportion. The Delhi NCR itself is now touching about 80 kilometers. And we have been hearing news that the AQI levels have risen so high that these cities are choking and it is difficult for human to breathe. Now, if you go to one city in the north which has developed huge as far as the software potential is concerned, it has got an excess population of about, say, 8 million people in that city. 10 kilometers you cover in more than 1 hour plus. Gentlemen, we are all in a digital world. If we can speak to each other in a webinar, why is it not that the 25 other capitals of this country do not have the industrial parks at a mega level, that you bring in that youth which is going and making a skewed population in the city or the state from where it is leaving to a city to which it's been concentrating. There are just 3 or 4 cities today in India which are developing much more in the software sector. And there are cities which are losing skilled population. I am in one of the remotest part of the country, that is J&K, and I do not see educated youth in my country. The problem is they do not have that incentive. Why is it not that we have a beautiful software park here? The same company can tell the 2 lakh students or 2 lakh youth to come and work. If work from home is possible, then work from an industrial park is also possible. Let this be shared by center and state by creating a national policy of developing these software parks all across the country and not making it centric to just few cities. This is a very difficult proposition which this country will face. And by the time we become actually Atmanirbhar Bharat, will be only dependent upon 2 or 3 metro cities and maybe 3 other allied cities where this growth is coming up. Now, this growth could be artificial also because it's a builder-led growth, not a growth which is dependent upon the master plan of that city. If the master plan of that city was under consideration, then the roads should have not been choked by now. The roads are choked. The infrastructure is good. There's no problem in saying in that. But then this growth is getting limited only to few cities. Next, again, an important point which I would like to cover is the difference rates of tax structure and prices. Now, this rate, tax structure, prices, and GST affects state to state. You will find that in a particular state, the price is low of a particular commodity and it is higher in other states. Now, at the border of the two states, you always see that trading happening in a different way. The typical example which I can share with you is the petrol and the liquor prices which happen in Delhi-Haryana border, or I should say it in J&K Punjab border. So there should be a uniformity in policy of prices and sector of such other commodities which are in big sales. And one of them is the petroleum products and liquors. My next topic is on subsidies, welfare measures.
Dr. Reen, can you conclude in another 1 minute? Or
yes, sir, I will conclude in 1 minute. It's subsidies, welfare, and freebies. Subsidies, we all understand. Welfare is also essential in giving food to those people. But as somebody rightly pointed out, providing free food is also an adverse impact on the labor force. And the last, what I said is freebies. The whole national policy has to address on these freebies. Do we need to give free bus rides? Do we need to give free electricity in the urban areas? By that money which we are saving, if we create jobs, I think that problem could be resolved. Last 30 seconds, which I'll take on the agriculture sector, and which is a very important point which Madam brought out. Madam, we are also a culprit to this, is because the rains which affected Punjab was due to the flow of water which happened from the states which are the Himalayan states, J&K, the Uttarakhand or Himachal. Now, how can we address this problem is, today we have suspended the Indus Water Treaty. It is high time that we build in the check dams in this area and store enough water which caters us for the requirement for agriculture. Second most important is when my produce comes in, the farmer does not get a market. Why do we have a free trade agreement with a country for a product which is available within the country? Second important factor is when my product is ripe and right to go, we have a blockage or a seasonal breakdown of roads where my product does not reach. Therefore, cold storage chain becomes an important factor. You know, in last 1 year, we have seen that the more emphasis was on making the people go for tourism or yatras. And this affected a large amount of movement, especially in the state of J&K, where the apple production was affected. And we had a losses to a tune of about 2,500 crores. It could be maybe more. So this sector has to be looked into in a very big way, because agriculture could be the backbone of the country. But agriculture is also breaking the bone of those who are building the agriculture, because subsidies should come in the form of what needs as an input to the agriculture. But what is happening is you produce the input, you get the crop, but you do not get the market value to your crop. I am myself a small farmer. Every time we don't even get a break even. So most important is, don't give me money as a subsidy. Give me the market in which my product could be sold. And if I'm not able to sell it, create that value addition or create that convertibility of the product, maybe into juices or other forms, by creating that industry within the state. It's no point creating an apple crushing unit in Indore rather than not having in J&K, because one should remember that Punjab, J&K, we are also the border states. Border states have got their own problems. So developing infrastructure which is agriculture based becomes very, very critical, very, very important. Otherwise, it also leads to the exodus of people to other states and maybe to other countries. So this needs to be arrested, and this needs to become a part of a policy statement, how rightly we can invest our money into these states. You know, we have seen the rush of highways being built.
You have to conclude now.
Highways are important. I'll just take 10 seconds more. Highways are very, very important. But how does this highway affect the ecology of that state? Even in the state of J&K, if you state, the broadening of highways to 4 to 6 lanes is now affecting the fragile mountains. It's happened in Uttarakhand, it has happened in Himachal, it is happening in J&K. So there should be a very well thought procedure, whether we go or do our connectivity by railways or the existing highways are enough. There is no rush in saying that a person can reach Katra in 6 hours. Even if he reaches overnight, doesn't make a difference. But by that 6-hour connectivity, it is bringing those mountains down. I think I have overshot my time. I'll stop it here. But these are certain very critical points which I wanted to bright out. I hope in the form of some inputs or the policy, it should go and should be addressed by the government or by the policymakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reen, for focusing on the issue of regional disparity and migration, and basically the idea that some states can have industrial parks in the IT sector and other states can develop on the basis of agriculture and small-scale industries. That model perhaps is not going to be working in future. But Dr. Charan Singh, I must tell you, they have, with such excellent panelists, you have a bad chairperson who has mismanaged the time. I have 3 speakers and I've already thought that the presentation should be over by 5:30. I don't know whether I will be able to leave time for discussion, but I would request the 3 speakers to be as brief as possible so that we can have some time for discussion. So we have an academic person, Rajeshwari ji, she's the faculty at the Christ University. Then we have somebody who is person of the field of action from ASSOCHAM, Raj Singh ji. And then we have Sir Ananth, who is an independent researcher. So let's go in this sequence and we'll end with an independent view from Dr. Ananth, right? May I request Rajeshwari ji to come and say 5 to 7 minutes? I'm sorry, this you have to pardon me that I have to rush. I want to leave some time for discussion.
No,
Rajeshwari
no
ji?
problem, sir. No problem.
Please.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. And before I start, I would like to thank Professor Charan Singh and EGROW Foundation for giving me this opportunity, because every time, pre-budget discussions are very interesting, because it is not influenced by any media or any newspaper or any other external factors. So I feel that pre-budget discussions are very important. So what exactly I'm going to talk about, since I belong to education sector, so obviously education and health both are very close to my heart. So I would be talking a little bit about social sector. So when you say social sector, education and health are the 2 important components which comes under social sector. Now there are 3 points which I want to cover. Number 1, why we should talk about social sector, especially in the context of 2026 budget. Number 2, what are the major issues when you are looking at education and health? And number 3, what 2026 budget should focus on. So now, just to set the context, why it is very important for me to talk about social sector, because we know that social sector, especially education and health, which contributes to the human development. So it is very, very important for us to talk about social sector, because most of the time it is always a debate of infrastructure versus social sector. So because always trying to balance between infrastructure and the social sector. So if we look at some data, current data, what exactly the indicators of, I'll constrain myself only to education and health due to time limitation. So what exactly the indicator says? So basically, when you are looking at the health indicators and the education indicators, let's say, for example, under health, life expectancy. So life expectancy is estimated 72 years in 2023, whereas global average is something around 73.3. Similarly, we have other type of indicators which we talk about: infant mortality rate, we talk about under 5 mortality rate, and all the different health indicators. So in many of the indicators, we are performing below the global average. Number 1, this is the the subject of concern. Then number 2, education. When you are looking at education, more than literacy, it is about the quality of education. So basically, we may say that every year we are increasing some amount, okay, especially in terms of actual numbers on education and health. But are we really translating those allocations in terms of improving indicators? So the problem lies there. So when you are looking at some of the quick data, let's say, for example, education, only something around 4.1 to 4.6% of the GDP we are spending on education. Whereas if we go by standard, it should be 6% of the GDP. Number two, when it comes to health, at present, like 1.9% of the GDP which we are spending. But if we go by national health policy criteria, it should be something around 2.5%. And what is the major issue here? Okay, the major issue, I feel that it is underinvestment in the human development. When you say underinvestment in human development, let's start with health. When you say health, what are the major issues? I have just listed out some of the important issues, like 2-3 issues which I would be talking about. Number one, out-of-pocket expenditure. When you are looking at out-of-pocket expenditure, though you may say that it has reduced over a period of time, but still the out-of-pocket expenditure is 39.4% of the total expenditure. So what exactly this says? This says, number one, inadequate health insurance coverage. Number two, poor public infrastructure. Number three, rising cost of health. Then number two, second important issue, underutilization of funds. We always talk about allocation of funds. I think we talk less about the utilization of funds, because we all know, like, whatever the allocation government makes doesn't mean that everything would be spent. For example, I'm just quoting some numbers. For instance, let's say, for example, in UP, all right, a report says that 56% of the fund which was allocated under different program was not utilized. So which also means that it is not only about the allocation. If you are not utilizing that allocation, that will also be contributing to underperformance. Now, there are certain states which are really doing well. For example, Telangana its utilization percentage is more than 70. Okay, for example, Odisha, which has utilization percentage more than 70%. But whereas states like Rajasthan, Punjab, Maharashtra, which has only around 25 to 30% of the utilization with respect to some of the
I think the
programs.
point is well taken. The point is well taken. Let's conclude in 1.5 minutes, right?
We are not using, the fund, whatever has been allocated, we are not utilizing it in a proper way. Then number three, the third important issue under health is workforce shortage, right? Because the recent report says that in 11 of the AIMS, where 39% of the faculty posts are vacant. Okay, when you are looking at nurse to population ratio, it is just 2.1 for 1,000 population. Okay, but whereas WHO standard says different. So which means that workforce shortage is also one of the very important problem when we are looking into health sectors. So these are the three main important issues which I want to talk about under health. And then when we come to education, so under education, the scenario is like completely different.
Can you conclude in another?
So there are three major issues which I want to discuss about. The number one, weak learning outcomes, because ASA report says that 73% of the students struggle with basic comprehension. That itself is like, matter of concern. Number two, high youth unemployment. The reports shows that like the recent PSFL reports shows that 65.7% of the unemployed youth who had at least secondary level of education. So, and over a period of time, the unemployment, with graduation, degree, that is increasing. So let's say, which also talks about a paradox that higher education doesn't guarantee employment. Let's say, for example, Kerala is one of the highest. Kerala has one of the highest literacy rate, but whereas when it comes to unemployment, still 29% unemployment rate exists. So basically, this is a paradox which the coming budget has to address. Then skill mismatch. Many of the panelists, discussed about skill mismatch. So basically, this PMKVY, that is Kushal Vikas Yojana, basically it is for developing the skills among the
Dr.
youth.
Rajeshwari, you have to conclude.
Yes,
You have
sir.
to conclude now.
So which shows that out of 1.6 crore youth, only 24.3 lakhs people could secure employment. So basically, this is also a matter of concern. So what exactly 2026 budget should focus on? Number one, prioritizing primary health care, the health workforce participation. Number two, aligning higher education and skilling with the labor market. Number three, expanding the paid internship, industry-linked skillings, especially at the state level. Number three, incentive to private sector so that they can hire freshers. And number four, increasing funds for the teacher training. So I think these are always neglected, sectors. I think 2026 budget should address these issues in a better way. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rajeshwari. She rightly pointed out that in several indicators, Indian macro level figure is much below the world average. Of course, India is 130 in the rank out of 193. So obviously, Indian figures are average figures are much less. But what she really brought out is that the deficits in the social indicators are much higher than the economic and economic infrastructural indicators. Social means health and education. And what ADB report says that it is very much possible to achieve the targets which have been mentioned in the Viksit Bharat, but inequality in the access to the social infrastructure, education and health, I think is a matter of concern. If you look at the data, UNDP clearly mentions that the inequality in access to education in India is one of the highest among the developing countries. So this is something which I think comes out in the details of your presentation. May I now request Dr. Raj Singh from ASSOCHAM?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
as
much.
much as possible.
Thank you so much, sir. First of all, very good afternoon to respected dignitary and the member of EGROW Foundation. My special thanks to session chairman, Professor Amitabh Kundu, sir, and my mentor, Dr. Charan Singh, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me opportunity. I will take only 5 minutes, sir. The reason being I am going to cover very special sector called emerging sector of corporate bond market. This, sir, in the last 5 years, when we have invited the ASSOCHAM, we have given us some ideas what are the important of the corporate bond market. Some point I am repeating, I will repeat your points, sir. Now figure has changed, sir. As per the recent report of Niti Aayog, sir, corporate bond market is contributing 12% annual growth, and in the GDP they are contributing 15 to 16%, but which is very below as per I can say in the peer economy such as South Korea, Malaysia, and China. So here we have to strengthen to particular on the corporate bond market to achieve not only our goal of the 10 trillion economy by the 2030. So there are some point I have now pointed out from the report of Niti Aayog, and the practical, some of the point is very practical. One point here, participation from the retail is very low in the corporate bond market. The reason being that we need to develop the financial literacy. That we know everyone is talking about the digital era, but again the digital era, the financial literacy is not playing the critical role as a sector which is emerging. Coming with the second point, sir, MSME participation. Again, the MSME participation, everyone has suggested very good ideas, whether it is fund issues, PLI issues, and all the schemes, they have suggested. But MSME participation is still very below, particularly in the corporate bond market. Reason is here, cost of issues is so high, so government should incentivize, give the some tax incentive other countries are giving. As I said, Malaysia and the other countries are regularly promoting the corporate bond market. So our government and regulators should also promote the corporate bond market to making a strengthen or making an ecosystem in the financial system. Third point, in the last, I think Charan sir has just mentioned, some of the capital market player has suggested during the FM meeting, as municipal corporate bond is doing good, but government should also make some incentive to make a gap in the infrastructure funding. Fifth point, my coming to, sir, there is a need to establish a dedicated debt market exchange here, as China has created as a Shanghai stock exchange. So there is a need to make a debt exchange, especially debt exchange, to deal with the debt security. Coming to the next point, sir. This is the very practical things. In the secondary market, settlement is allowed through the only RTGS. So here regulators should allow. Why not we should make a settlement through UPI or IMPS? Okay, it will be help to more participation from the retail participation. Coming to the next point, this is again very important, sir, as compared to the equity market with the debt market. In the debt market, the SEBI has given the threshold investment in 10,000 rupees, which should be reduced so that as an individual we can participate for the debt market. Coming to this is my last point. I will not take much time as suggested by our session chairman. Here, exit mechanism is very low in the secondary market. So government should also give us some flexibility to, once I invest the debt market, so it should be the flexibility to exit as required by the individual or required by the retail participation. So these are the few points, sir. So thank you so much for giving opportunity. These are my point. Thank you. Thank you, Charan sir.
Thank you, Rajesh, for being very pointed in your suggestions. Many of the participants mentioned that EGROW has maintained a tradition of, keeping the arguments focused on empirical research and not being swayed by ideological rhetoric. And certainly we know that an empirically data-based criticism, which if it is constructive, it is much more helpful for the policymakers and the planners than rhetoric-based support. So keeping that tradition, we have had this wonderful discussion, and I would like to bring the last presenter, whom, as I read, is an independent researcher. So you will have to now put the independent views, perhaps give some kind of a overview and tell us what should be the roadmap for Viksit Bharat. Please, Dr. Ananth. Mr. Ananth.
Thank you, Professor Amitabh. And I thank Professor Charan Singh for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. Sir, I'll be very brief, and instead of trying to be ambitious in giving an overview of what Viksit Bharat would require, my part would be more restricted to a practical problem that all of us face, and that is the issue of the importance that should be given for environmental protection as such. Because when we talk about environment, it's such a large area. On one hand, all of us have faced this problem of pollution, air pollution. Then, of course, the other things that do not really come up onto the radar of most of us is what is happening in most smaller towns. I mean, of course, Delhi pollution is in the news because, after all, at the end of the day, it is the capital, and Delhi is the center of a lot of things. But at the same time, okay, even not going into this Aravali issue and so on, almost on a daily basis, millions of us keep suffering from the negative aspects of this environmental pollution that is hitting us. And my view is that we cannot have a sustainable economy without clean environment. I mean, I don't really think it's possible or for us to have some sort of a pristine environmental ecosystem as such. Yes, there will be pollution, but then at the same time, the question of how do we balance it is very important, because what we increasingly see is there is an increasing tendency wherein the states, there is, when I say state, when I say the government, it means the center and the states, are trying to look at this aspect of saying, okay, we need development, but at the same time, the balance that existed for a long time, or at least that that people try to show that existed for a long time, is now being dismantled. And that's not good news, because what's now happening is that all of us have to, at least from now on deep into the future, we have to spend more from our own pocket for things like environmental protection, like pollution masks, etc., which should normally be a right to life, right to our life. I mean, healthy life. That's one of the fundamental rights that we have. And what I would really like to see in the budget is more focus on trying to see to it that these lot of illegal activities that are going on, lots of, say, for example, illegal mining, gravel mining, sand mining, all these are mafias that exist. So we might try to absolve ourselves by saying, no, this is the state perspective, this is in state's purview, this is in the center's purview, and so on. But then we have to understand that most of the environmental protection acts that we have, Environmental Protection Act, the Air Act, Water Act, all these are central acts. So the center should, in my view, take a lead in the union budget to say that, okay, we have to work with the states, but we'll also start incentivizing or disincentivize places where there is a bit too much, where there is extraordinary environmental degradation and where is no action taken. Like, for example, is illegal sand mining, like illegal gravel mining. Like, I stay in a state where some of the big companies, I mean, we are not going to the specifics of it, they're involved in illegal gravel mining. It's not like, I mean, we are not talking about small time local mafias of people who are doing all these activities. So I think at some point of time, we need the government, especially the union government, to put its foot down, saying that we should require, we need this environment protection because it is necessary for the people. I mean, you cannot have a prosperous economy without protection of the environment. I mean, you can't have citizens who are sick or dying or whatever it is, and then having a dynamic economy. It just simply does not work that way. Productivity will be hurt. The people's financial health is going to suffer hugely. We saw what happened in COVID. What kind of a health crisis? Of course, that was an externality that came in all of a sudden. But then at the same time, here, when we look at this particular, when we look at our environment, what we need to look at is how best can we reduce pollution? What are the measures that the government can encourage? Because remember, we have this fundamental principle that is there, the polluter pays. That's a principle that's been there in our jurisprudence from the 1980s onwards. But unfortunately, that's not happening. So I think the time has come where the government has to say, the union has to take a lead, saying that we will not tolerate complaints of whatever, cutting down the forest, or for that matter, this illegal mining that's taking place, the rivers, because rivers are off, almost all our rivers are interstate rivers. So if one place something goes wrong, if the hydrological balance is destroyed, then what happens? It's not just one part that suffers. It might be downstream, upstream, everywhere this is going to have an effect. So I think that has to start somewhere. And I think this budget would be a great time, because now, as far as the public are concerned, the impact of environmental degradation, environmental pollution is being felt by everybody. So I think ideally it would be useful if the government starts saying, okay, we are going to take up certain measures, like, for example, protecting the forest. Like, you might be shocked that whenever we file for an RTA as to which part of it is the forest land, the RTA just doesn't come. So I think it would be a great thing if the central government actually says, okay, this is all the reserve forest area. This is our forest. Now, this is where it starts. This is the boundary. And it's not difficult. At the end of the day, you have satellite mapping. Just put it up in the public domain so that at least there will be some public pressure which will force these people who are indulging in such activities to step backwards. Because we saw what happened in Aravali case. When there is public pressure, it leads to some difference. I'm not saying it leads to, say, our society becoming perfect or something. I'm not saying this illegal mining, environmental pollution, degradation, etc. will simply go away in one day. We cannot wish that. But at least we start making the effort. That's what I would like to see, because I do not envisage situation where there is huge amount of pollution right down from, say, the major metropolitan cities down to the small towns. Small towns, the problem is worse. You just have to see plastic, the pollution of the rivers, water bodies being encroached left, right, and center. Then the floods. Each time there is a flood, everybody wakes up. The damage that's caused by the flood is immense. Everybody suffers. So I think this is where we really have to, where the government has to step up, the center has to start saying, okay, we'll incentivize or we'll also punish states which might not be willing to take up additional measures. And of course, the companies too. So any complaint that comes of, say, something like illegal gravel mining or something, digging up forest land or whatever it is, they will have to pay a heavy price. I think that's where nobody is going. I think this whole claim that if the government takes action, they're destroying ease of doing business, etc. I don't think anybody on the ground level believes it. In fact, I think everybody is unhappy that the government is not doing sufficient to protect the environment. It's just that people might not talk about it because for whatever reasons. I mean, they might have their reasons. So, and most importantly, I think the corporate world has to come up and say, okay, we will protect the forest. We will not indulge in pollution. We will not encourage our members to take up illegal gravel mining, whatever, even if they're the biggest companies and so on. Unless that happens, we're just not going to have, I mean, statements that come in by our politicians, business leaders, bureaucrats, that we'll protect environment, etc. They have absolutely no credibility, and we lose more and more credibility if this happens. So before all of us are affected, in fact, I was hoping that, considering the importance that health got during the COVID time, that would carry over, but unfortunately, that doesn't seem to have happened. Hopefully, things will change. Hopefully, the budget will start moving in the right direction as far as environmental protection is concerned, protecting our environmental resources are concerned. Thank you to EGROW for this opportunity. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Ananth. Although I was trying to provoke you to, since you mentioned as an independent researcher, to give some views on the contentious issues which came up, but I'm really happy that you brought in the environmental issue, which was not touched upon, and that really needs to be addressed in a significant manner in the budget. I was just looking at the sustainability index report, which is brought out under the UN system by Jeffrey Sachs. While India is making small progress in Human Development Index, 1 or 2 ranks up on an average over the past 4 or 5 years. But in Sustainability Index, India has made a significant jump, about 7 slots. But that is at the macro level. What is important is the regional impact. In India, the Himalayan regions, the forest areas, northeast, and also some of the coastal areas are going to be very badly affected. So that, I think, is the critical point that I take from your presentation. I'm happy to say that Dr. Charan Singh is very kind in giving another 15 minutes for discussion. So we can make it 20 minutes perhaps, but not more than that. Can I throw it open for, I mean, I have been commenting on the papers. I really don't need any time to summarize. It's such rich discussion should not be summarized. So let's open this platform for discussion. Let's first have questions from the audience, and then we'll ask the panelists also to either respond to ask questions to the other panelists. Can we have questions? I hope, Dr. Charan Singh, the response of the panelists have been overwhelming, including you. We are 13, and there has not been a single dropout. I'm sure the participation from the audience is also as overwhelming as from the panelists. There are a large number of people.
We had 80 people at the peak.
Very good.
I guess, yeah, and they were consistently with us. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. If anybody has a query or anybody has an observation, we are more than happy to accommodate that.
Let's have at least 2 or 3 questions from the audience, and then we'll ask to turn to the panelists.
Anybody who has a question, please raise your hand. Dr. Jacob Cresta has raised his hand.
Thank you, Dr. Charan Singh. Sir, my specific question or rather a suggestion for the panelists and for the people, those who report to the government. Viksit Bharat, if at all in 2047 we are achieving the, say, what has been projected is $63 trillion economy. Major contribution is going to be from MSME. And MSME already, you know that it's 48% of economy comes from there. 42% of employment is from there. So that being the so potential of MSME, if PLI, that is Production Link Institute, is restricted only to 8 products like toys, your handbags, and such things are only be given about 8 articles. So if the PLI is given that Production Link Institute throughout the production of every industry in MSME, probably the production will and the GDP will definitely grow and we will achieve Viksit Bharat not in 2047, probably by 2045. This is my suggestion, sir.
Thank you. Can we have the next one quickly? No?
Hi. Hi.
Harika, yeah, can you
Yes.
make yourself visible?
Yes.
Is there a technical? Oh, okay,
Yes.
fine.
Yes. Is it like
Be brief.
I would like to? Yes, I would like to address Rajeshwari Madam for her like valuable insights in underinvestment. My question is, from her perspective, what should be the top priority for the upcoming budget in order to effectively enhance like skill development and human capital in India? Thank you.
Yes, next. Quickly. Otherwise, we'll close in 20 seconds. Anyone? The last few seconds. Okay, I'll turn to the panelists if they have any questions for the others and all or any response that you want to give.
I have got. Can I address one response to the person who was speaking about MSME? Can I reply on that?
Yes.
May
I announce your name, please? Reen Saab, all right.
I am General Reen.
Okay, go ahead.
So
why did you make yourself invisible?
I'm invisible. I'll make myself visible. Am I visible now?
Oh. Yeah, you're strong personality speaker of the panel.
Okay. My answer is on MSME is, yes, we all understand MSME is very important. MSME is what creates wealth and jobs for the country. But somebody very briefly touched upon one point, that was industry standard 4.0. Since I have been working on this, if we have to today compete in the world, our manufacturing has to be world class. And digital manufacturing is when we do digital threading of all our machines. And our machines are started behaving with AI and machine learning, that we produce the products which are defect free and which are world class. Today, the acceptability of my toy has not only be to this country or to the children of this country, it has to see a worldwide market. Even in major defense industries where we are working now, and we are addressing this problem or this issue at a very large scale, I would request MSMEs, which also form a part of the ecosystem, should take this on of implementing industry standard 4.0 in their own industries, because then they will become adaptable to the bigger eco-centric market, which is led by major DPSUs. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, maybe I can ask Dr. Rajeshwari to briefly comment just in 1 minute on the point about the educational investment. Rajeshwari, are you there?
Rajeshwari might have left because she had another meeting with the government of Karnataka starting at 5:30. So she might have just left.
That's what happens, when you unilaterally extend the time and the participants disappear. Any other question or comments from the panelists? Dr. Chenoy, you seem to be having questions in your eyes. No.
No. I actually wanted to add a point on productivity, but I won't do that in interest.
Okay. Well, Professor Charan Singh, should we take any other question, or we can conclude?
Yeah, we'll conclude now.
I just want to say one thing, Dr. Chenoy. You see, the share of manufacturing is about 15% in the labor force, and it has remained so. If you take, there has been slight decline from the initial years of this present century, but it has for the last 10-12 years is around 15%, and the share in the GDP is about 16-17%, and it has also not increased. They say after post-COVID there is some recovery, but that's not reflected in the statistics in any significant manner. Now we have Dr. Goldar, who is questioning the whole methodology of calculating national income. He talks about double discounting method, and if you apply that, he says the share of industries, manufacturing in the GDP will go up to 24%. Basically, he's saying that the production, industrial value added has increased much higher because the terms of trade has moved against industries and moved in favor of agriculture. So inputs have become more costly for the industries, whereas output has increased by prices, but not that much. Now, even that is the case, I think there are methodological issues. Since he's chairing that committee, that methodology may be accepted. But if you look at the data on manufacturing sector's growth, you do find, yes, there is PLFS data shows there is an increase. But much of the employment increase is own account enterprises, not really MSMEs, are family-based, unpaid labor. And is that a sign which we can say it's a great step? Because a large part of the employment that has been generated are for the woman in the rural areas. Some people think that, well, this is certainly not a very healthy industrialization, industrial diversification. But there are other people who believe that government has been making efforts to really promote decentralized industrialization, strengthening own account enterprises, giving loans, Mudra, and various other schemes, Lakpati Didi program. If that has really shown this green shoots, why should we dismiss it? So I just thought that when people are talking about premature deindustrialization, if the industrial value added is showing some increase, and even if it is in the rural areas driven by women in the own account enterprises, we should not dismiss it. That's my submission. I thought quickly,
Professor, I think,
Dr. Chenoy, if you want to say something.
Yeah, Professor, I think you made a very valid point. And I think there are two very clear issues that are arising in the current economic scenario. One, if you look at all of the large industries, the capacity utilization is around 73-72%. Unless consumption grows, right? We are facing some challenges with export, but unless consumption grows and unless the capacity utilization share goes up, you're not going to see any investment in further investment by those companies, or we are going to see new investment coming up here, and therefore there's a limited scope of job creation unless we do something to spur manufacturing, and therefore I listed out those 7 points when I spoke. But the second thing is, irrespective of the fact that how much manufacturing grows, job creation at the rural and other level is going to depend on creating a whole brand new set of entrepreneurs. And therefore, and entrepreneurs and startups start small, 1 or 2 people. Even if you look at the 60 million odd MSMEs, the average, MSME employs about 2 to 4 people. So it is important as a policy perspective to keep focusing on promoting women-led entrepreneurship or rural-based entrepreneurship in different segments of India. And during the conversation this evening, we heard things like value-added agriculture. We heard the care economy and the ashas there. So I think those have to be focused on to provide, local area jobs for local people, even in the Northeast. A lot of people focus on the Northeast, and it is possible. And the government has a lot of schemes. We need to, focus on them, refine them, and make sure at least the utilization by different states reaches a higher kind of percentage, and focus on execution. Some schemes, we need new schemes. Other schemes, we need to focus on execution, so that the benefits reach out to the last mile.
Thank you. That's a wonderful statement to end with. I was just thinking that this rural woman-led industrialization, which is own account enterprises, small-scale enterprises. This is not all poverty induced. There is a rural demand. The terms of trade has moved in favor of agriculture. Share of rural in the GDP has slightly gone up for the last 2-3 years. And that demand is being tapped by this, low scale industrialization. I noted from the 2024 PLFS data that 83% of the employment in the rural areas are linked with our subcontracted jobs, which means they are getting the job, there is demand for it, they're supplying to some intermediaries. Maybe the intermediaries are exploiting, but should we not really help this sector, this growth, by providing technology, by marketing support? And if 83% of this employment is linked with demand, because they are doing subcontracted jobs, so that is something which is giving me the hope that it's not poverty induced. But I think a lot more work needs to be done and seen how we can really strengthen this process of dispersed industrialization, not really be dependent on only large scale industries. I thought this is a question which needs to be investigated. Dr. Charan Singh, I would like to thank you very much. I have really enjoyed participating in this, although I've been nasty in sometimes to stop somebody, but that's the job that Charan Singh ji gave it to me. So we share the responsibility equally. I will hand over the platform to Professor Charan Singh.
Thank you so much, Professor Kundu, and thank you very much, the panelists. They've brought such fantastic ideas, and the participants who have been asking questions or making observations. I'm going to make a request to all the panelists. This is recorded. We intend to send it to the Ministry of Finance on Monday. We are also going to put it on the website of EGROW. I'm going to make a small request to you. If you could send me bullet points of what you have said. Dilip Chenoy has already sent me, and Mr. Dadhich has already sent me the write-up of whatever they have said. We will attach it in the link so that the Ministry of Finance can see exactly what they have said. For others, I would request you, if you could give me a small short write-up, I could attach it along with the presentation. So this, when I send to the MOF, they can take advantage of it. As you have noticed, each one of you have made very pertinent points, each one of you. And therefore, I think these need attention of the government, and whatever they can accommodate in the budget, why not? Our job is to provide them inputs. So in a way, if you give me in writing, it'll facilitate their incorporation. This is what I assume. With that, let me just once again remind you, we are having next Friday a fantastic discussion from a Professor Angela, who's a professor at University of York. She is speaking on health. So you're welcome to attend it, 4 to 5:30. On Saturday, January 10, we are having fiscal policy for Viksit Bharat, 4 professors speaking. And then we are going to have another one on January 12, which we are going to talk about Manrega. And what is the ailment there? What is our suggestion there? So you're welcome to please pencil these. Again, all of them are 4 to 5:30. So you're welcome to pencil this and join us. With that, let me wish you a great weekend, a productive weekend. And I think all of you are going to feel good that we are contributing to nation building through these ideas which we have shared today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.